Throughout your life, you've had these moments of tears of inspiration, and you've known they were meaningful, and you know they were important to listen to and pay attention to. They've been guiding your life your whole life. But there's a science in how to actually recreate these. In all probability, somewhere in your life, you've watched somebody perform and it brought yourself to tears. Or you read something that inspired you and brought yourself to tears. The reason why these events were so heart-opening and tear-jerking is because the individual in their writing or their expression was authentic. When an individual is authentic and really being themselves, there's a special transcendent state that occurs. They'll be grateful, they'll feel love, they'll be inspired, they'll be enthused, they'll be present, and they'll be certain. And there's an honor that occurs in that state. Anytime somebody is up on stage performing and they're in that state, the whole room joins them in that state, and there's tears of gratitude sitting in that room because the whole room now becomes authentic. It's a spillover effect. They found out that when an individual has this open-hearted state, this authentic state, that there is a synchronicity in the brain and a synchronicity between that brain, their brain, and their audience's brains. They synchronize. This has been documented in science now. So I'd like to go down the rabbit hole a bit on how and what this is. So if you have something to write with and write on, you might want to take a few notes. So in your subcortical area of your brain, the amygdala, when it takes in information, it's activated and it assigns, kind of like a filtering mechanism, assigns the experiences we have as positive or negative, mainly because it is designed for survival, and it is, if it's prey and it's got more positive and negatives, it wants to know it's prey so it can capture the prey so it doesn't starve to death. Or if it's predator, it wants to know it's predator so it has more negatives than positives so it doesn't get eaten to death. So the amygdala is designed to assign valency to our experiences and stimuli and polarize things with judgment in order to survive and subjectively distort the reality to make sure the adrenaline runs fast enough to capture the prey or fast enough to avoid the predator. So we have this judging imbalanced ratios of perceptions that make us, in a sense, minimize ourselves if it's prey and exaggerate ourselves if it's predator. Because when somebody challenges us, we tend to get narcissistic and proud. When somebody supports us, we become altruistic and kind of shamed. When we actually see both sides simultaneously, we have love. And instead of exaggerating and minimizing ourselves, we become ourselves. Anytime we put somebody on a pedestal and infatuate with them and represent prey and minimize ourselves, we're inauthentic. We have an imposter syndrome. Anytime we put somebody down in the pit and exaggerate ourselves because we're too proud, we're not authentic. Because we're judging and we disown that, we're too proud or too humble to admit what we see in others inside us. We now have deflected awareness, judgment, and we don't have our authenticity because we're now puffing ourselves or beating ourselves up. Pride or shame. We all want to be loved for who we are, but as long as we're too proud or too ashamed to be that, we're not able to be loved. We don't feel love. Now, when we have tears of inspiration, tears of love, it's a confirmation of a moment of authenticity where we're not exaggerating and minimizing ourselves. This is what I teach in the breakthrough experience, and I share with people how to develop this state of doing the Demartini method. So let me elaborate on this in even more detail. Your brain, when you see something that's prey, you activate the parasympathetic nervous system and it gives you kind of a rest and digest response. That's for you to eat and then rest. So it's symbolizing digestion and then sleep. And it moves us in towards a delta wavelength, which is around 3 cycles per second. When we see something that challenges us, we activate the sympathetic nervous system, and now we get the fight or flight response, and we tackle these things during the day when we're not resting. And that activates the sympathetic nervous system and causes a beta wave, which goes up to around 13 cycles per second. Now, if we see both sides simultaneously, we balance out our ratios of perception. and we see both of them at the exact same time in a perfect balance. These 3 to 13 cycles per second come to a 7 to 8 cycle balance. Right at the 8 cycles per second, as we get to a junction of alpha and theta, right there, at that junction, we're not judging something as up or down. We're not separating ourselves with pride or shame. We're just having a moment of authenticity. At that moment, a eureka moment occurs. A gamma synchronicity in the brain around 40 cycles per second occurs. The brain lights up and synchronizes. This is the same thing that then affects the audience. At that moment, a eureka authentic moment occurs. Tears of gratitude come out because our autonomic nervous system is balanced. We call that in the intercardiac network activation of the heart an open heart feeling. We literally feel our heart open. We feel love and gratitude, inspiration, enthusiasm, certainty, and presence, which I call the transcendental feelings. They're not polarized emotions, which are dramatically imbalanced, but they're now balanced. In that moment, our heart opens up, we're authentic, and we get a confirmation of authenticity. Throughout your life, you've had these moments of tears of inspiration, and you've known they were meaningful, and you know they were important to listen to and pay attention to. They've been guiding your life your whole life. But there's a science on how to actually recreate these, a science of how to balance the equation and be authentic instead of being an imposter. And instead of judging, you actually get to love. And the moment you do and you have a gamma synchronicity, you influence people around you. It's impossible to be authentic without influencing and leaving a mark and a legacy in your life through other people. Why? Because everybody wants to be loved and appreciated who they are. And in a moment of authenticity, you're demonstrating it. And there's a respect and honor for people who demonstrate that. That's why when you see somebody that's performing in any capacity, or painting, or writing, or doing anything in that state, it leaves its mark and people are drawn there. You see these people that leave their marks in museums, in art galleries, performances. We're drawn to people that demonstrate authenticity in this perfectly balanced alpha theta junction, gamma synchronous state, where the executive center fires off. There's a synchronicity in the brain, there's an authentic state, there's an intercardiac freedom, there's an open heart, and our autonomic nervous system is perfectly balanced. We have resilience, adaptability, we bring healing in this state, and this authentic is magnetic, and it draws to us people, places, things, ideas, and events in our life that synchronize with what we're dominating thought on at that moment. Our intention becomes manifested, if you will, because now we're being authentic. So this open-hearted state is a sign of authenticity. It shows up in tears of gratitude, love, inspiration, enthusiasm, certainty, and presence. It has a massive influence on anybody that's around it, and it automatically is a confirmation of your authentic and magnificent self. You leave a mark in the world and an influence in the world and a legacy in the world every moment you do it. In the Breakthrough Experience program, I teach people the science of how to awaken that. I show them that if you increase the probability of this state and you have your executive function overriding your amygdala survival response, that you increase the probability of achievement, you increase the probability of an influence, you wake up your leadership, you expand your space and time horizons, you open your heart, you have an influence, and there's basically a synchronicity of other people, places, things, ideas, and events in your life to help you manifest what your intention is. It's a very powerful state. And I love sharing how to do that in the Breakthrough Experience when I teach people the Demartini method, which leaves them in that state of authenticity at the closure of that series of questions that the method offers. So come to the Breakthrough Experience, learn the Demartini method, learn how to have an authentic state, learn how to liberate yourself from all the emotions of survival that are distracting you, and learn how the difference between joy and sorrow tears and tears of inspiration, which are confirmations of authenticity.